Welcome to another episode of Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to business continuity, resilience, COVID, emergency management, crisis communications, anything that helps you, your organization, or your community prepare for, respond to, and overcome adverse situations. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can find me on LinkedIn. I am the only Alex Fullick there, so I'm really easy to find, and I do respond to everything I get. Quick note, I will be speaking at the upcoming Continuity Insights Conference in Louisville, Kentucky, April 25th to 27th. So fingers crossed, we'll be able to do that in person, and hopefully I'll see some of you there. Today's topic is one that I'm excited about and trying to get organized, but calendars just have us go in different directions. I'm really excited to talk to my two guests today. The topic is women in resilience, and I'd like to welcome to the show Rina Singh and Margaret Millett. Welcome to the show, Rina. Welcome, Margaret.
Hello, thank you.
Hello. Yes, thank you, Alex. Thank you for having us.
Oh, my pleasure. As I said, I've wanted to talk about this for a long time, but I know I'm talking with two very busy people, and we just couldn't get things synced there for a little while, but we now can. So I'm really happy to have you here. As I said, I just want to put a little bit of a personal spin on our topic today, women in resilience, and then I'll have you introduce yourselves, and we can continue on. But when I was growing up, there were three women in my life that were incredibly strong, that I love dearly. And I thought, that they were resilient, always resilient. They went through hardships. They were running businesses and stores, and they had their families to contend with. They had illnesses, and that was my mother and her two friends, best friends, my Auntie Brenda and my Auntie Kendall. And sometimes people say it's tough growing up. Your mom always knows what you're doing. Well, try growing up when you've got three of them. You can't escape anything. And they were fantastic. I had great conversations, even philosophical conversation with them. And no matter what was thrown at them, they just kept going. Sorry, getting a little emotional here for a second. So I really, really am looking forward to talking with you both today, because the three of them are people that I greatly admire and always have. And sadly, Auntie Brenda and Auntie Kendall aren't with us today anymore, but I still have my mom. And this show I am dedicating to them. So I'm really happy to have you here to share this with me. Now, enough of my soppy story. Could you each take a moment, a minute or two, and just tell us a little bit about yourselves? Who would like to go first?
Rina, I'm going to let you go first.
Great,
Okay.
thank you. Wonderful, Alex. So nice to hear that this episode is dedicated to those special women in your life, and I love it. My name is Rina Singh. I am the founder of the ResiliencePod podcast, chair of the Women in Resilience Committee, and also a resilience practitioner by day too. So I get it. I get all the challenges we all face when working in the industry. Margaret, over to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Margaret Millett. I am also a practitioner for many years, and in the trenches. And Alex, I'm so touched that you dedicated this to the women in your life who had an influence on you. I come from a long line of strong women as well, and I look back and I think back in the time when my grandmothers were growing up and my mom. It's like you didn't always have the opportunity to finish your education, or if you did, your choices were very limited. Many women years ago went into becoming secretaries, teachers, or nurses. And I think if they were in these shoes today, their world would be totally, totally different.
Mm-hmm. Well, welcome, Margaret, and welcome, Rina. I'm really happy to have you here with us today. Let's jump into things. I was going to ask how the committee came around, but I know that kind of predates both of you. So I'll just say thanks to BCI for thinking about it and pulling it all together. Now let's move on. The next part I'd like to talk about what are some of the problems women are facing in the business continuity, disaster recovery, or resilience industries?
Oh, Alex, that's such a huge $1 million question. And where do I start? Like, we go back to like World War One, two, and all the challenges women face. We've all come a long way regarding women in the workplace, and I don't feel that categorizing specifically is in the women's challenges in resilience any different to any other industry different, because I feel like it's fundamentally the same. So yes, we've come a long way over like 50 years, 100 years or so forth, but we still have the challenges that leadership challenges, we're not advancing quick enough, trying to promote women into senior positions, leadership positions has been on organizations' forefront for like over 10 years. Nothing's changed really. Gender pay gap, still a problem, then there's those constant inequalities where there's lots of different intersections. So whether it's gender-based, age-based, race-based as well, and then the geographic location of where you're based to and the challenges within that. Then on another layer of that, it's the challenges women face of actually operating day-to-day office politics. One, they don't do it, or they do it, or they just don't get a voice at the table. So I feel like we could probably spend the whole episode talking about this in very much detail, but there's all these general issues that still exist within our industry, which doesn't help. And then on top of that, we are, as women, and I'm not talking about every single one, but definitely for myself, and I wonder if Margaret can relate to this, is we have that imposter syndrome sometimes too. So we don't really help ourselves in that aspect. And we kind of, with all this stuff going on about, the challenges we face in the workplace, that imposter syndrome comes into play quite frequently for us because we're trying to manage different responsibilities. And the pandemic, and I hate going on about this, but it has actually reinforced that struggle that women face and actually has made us step back a little bit in terms of progress.
Margaret?
I'm going to say, I think the other challenge with the profession also is the fact that, this is still a hidden profession. You don't find out about it when you go to university. There is more on other realms of corporate America or corporate global world, excuse me, since this is going to be broadcast globally. And young people find out more about things like cybersecurity. You can go get degrees in cybersecurity. It's also sad that, over the last 20 years or so, that this has not made a foothold into universities to become an undergraduate degree. It's made advancements for the graduate field, but that's then when you're getting into a niche market of people going into the profession. And again, I think that the other thing that can be disalarming about business continuity and trying to get people to come into this profession is, we're not the sexy ones in the office. We're not the cybersecurity people. We are lean and mean small teams. And I think that can be somewhat of an eye opener of, hey, they want me to go work at this team. There's a lot of cool work going on, but, it's like a small handful of people, but yet you look at cybersecurity teams at companies and they're growing by leaps and bounds. Or I always kiddingly say, name me an organization that has 5 human resources people or 5 lawyers. Nobody's going to say that they have that, but yet large corporations are asking business continuity teams to run on, a handful of people to support them in multiple countries across the globe. So I also don't think that executive leadership is doing any favors for the profession either.
Is that why maybe there aren't as many women in the industry as there should be? Is because it's not promoted as you both brought up, like in universities, in organizations. It's business continuity isn't often an afterthought, so people don't think about it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't attract.
If you go ask, how did you get into this profession? I think you'll find a majority of the people will say they got into it by accident.
Right here.
Yeah. And I'm going to raise my hand as well. Yeah. And I think that, we have started to see some people graduating from university and coming into the profession, but I think some of that is only through the fact that they've had an opportunity to do internships in their collegiate years that then have opened their eyes to it. and then have gotten a taste for it and wanted to continue on with it. So I hope that continues to evolve, but not everyone's going to take an internship in a field that's not related to their major degree.
Mm-hmm. And that isn't considered, I forget, I think it was Rina, you said it, that isn't considered sexy.
Yeah, that's what Margaret said. And I want to add to that all these kind of jobs that we do aren't fundamentally designed for women, because it was always male dominated. There's late nights, conflicting demands. Generally, the whole workplace for women and just work in general was designed for a man's world, because the women would always be taking care of home responsibilities. So when jobs are designed, advertised, are they designed in a flexible way? No. And that's probably why women aren't advancing or thinking about doing jobs, because how can I manage all the conflicting priorities that I do outside of work with a demanding job like what we can do? And some roles are very, very demanding than others. How are you going to fit that into your personal life? And the fact is, we all have biases, especially in employment. And when you are a woman applying for a senior position, they will look at you, and a lot of people will think, is she going to go off and have children? How is she going to manage? Will your husband let you work? Well, actually, wait, how is any of that relevant? And sorry to say, it does actually happen still right now. And if it hasn't crossed anyone's minds, I'd be very surprised. But it's a hard fact that we have to remember, that still jobs aren't designed specifically for women.
Margaret,
I agree with what Rina says, because, for example, I don't think women are given enough credit. If you get online at 6 a.m. and then you stop at 7:30 and then you come back on at 9:30, you already worked an hour and a half. You're still getting your job done. And I also think that employers really need to take a moment and stop and think about before they post a job, because this need to be on call 24/7 is kind of like archaic in this day and age, when organizations want to be, and I'm going to use the word resilient, and it's not meaning as in business continuity, but meaning that they want to be there to service everyone. You can't ask a group of people to be there morning, noon, and night, 24/7, weekends, etc. That's an ask for burnout. So why can't we implement shift work or follow the sun models, so that we can support people so that they can have what I call a normal work day? A lot of people kid me on this, that when I say there's 24 hours in the day, a third of it should be for sleeping, a third of it should be for working, and a third of it should be with your family and friends. And, when we then bleed in too much time of not getting to sleep or see your family and friends, that's a red light. And that should also be a red light for executive management.
Are we seeing any changes, though? Because a lot of what you brought up is, and as you described, historical, and that's exactly where people and some people are continuing to think. But are we seeing any changes now going forward? I know I've seen some. What about yourselves?
I don't think it's at a fast enough rate for business continuity professionals. I see it happening with others, like the cybersecurity team or the physical security team, that they'll have larger teams. They will have a follow the sun model. But I don't see that happening with business continuity teams. I don't know about you, Rina.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's an intention to do it, but there's still we don't have enough people. Why is one person doing it? Like Margaret said before, why is one person managing a whole global sort of empire for continuity? Why? And then also, a lot of these things are becoming a checkbox exercise for organizations. So yes, management might have the intention to look at this and change this, but they're not really, because it's the proof's in the pudding, really. And that all comes to not just societal issues for business, but individual personal issues about, say, who the manager is, who the execs are, and what their belief system is, and whether that aligns to it or not. Because ultimately, that's going to filter down. So there's a long way to go. Yes, there are some small changes, and there's, say, like flexible working or whatever, but to the point which Margaret made about a role asking for 24/7. Well, funnily enough, in our women in resilience WhatsApp group, I found a recent role, and one of the expectation was be on call 24/7, like for the whole year. And it was for a junior position. So you're not getting paid enough. There was no salary disclosed, and you want me to be 24/7. We were just sharing this as proof that actually this is definitely not catered for women, and it's unrealistic.
I've noticed a lot of those 24/7 positions are junior, and it's really not fair. I don't agree with them.
Yeah.
I'm on side with both of you on that. You mentioned a tick box exercise. How do we recognize if it is a text box exercise rather than a genuine activity to recruit and bring women on board into our industry, and not the tick boxes like, oh great, Rina signed up and Margaret signed up, good, tick tick.
Yeah, well, I can go first because so let's look at our organization or the business that we're working in. How many women are in the team? Count, and then out of that, how many have been put forward, say for a specific course, for example, on women in leadership. Okay, they've done that, great, you've given me the opportunity to do this fantastic 5-day residential, it's amazing, I'm empowered. But then what has the business then supported since I've done that course? So checkbox, yeah, we've got all the women over this certain band, like level, doing this. What have you done to support me? Or have you just completely forgotten about it? And then has then your director or senior person got a checklist in a meeting and then said, oh, all these people, women, went on this course, and where are they now in the business? And then they're like, oh shoot, I didn't know you went on this course. So they're trying to come and talk to you, and they've never made the effort to talk to you in the past to see, oh, where can I position you if you want? And it's completely, for me, that's checkbox, because then you never hear from it again. And I've experienced it, that's why I'm saying it, is that is a clear, you're just doing it to check a box, and then there's been no follow-up, no resource, nothing even from HR to do it. And that's a fine indicator for that, personally, for me.
Margaret?
And Rina, this is where I'm going to say you and I are so cut from the same cloth, because one, when I get asked to go do things that are for women, where are the men classes? Because it gets down to, statistics have shown and research has shown that men will read a job description, know they're not 100% qualified, and just put their name in. Women will read the job description and realize that they don't have certain aspects that they need in order to be successful in the position, and may or may not apply. And then you're right, Rina, like, why do we need a women in leadership class at organizations? We don't have one for men. And yet, so oftentimes when I talk to men who are then put in the role of being a people manager, they've never done it before. And so they're trying to learn on the job as they mature in their careers. And then the other thing that I find fascinating, in my career, and I've worked at quite a few companies, if you were to look at my profile on LinkedIn, I've always had women HR business partners. So even women are not our allies when it comes to the promotion cycle. It's more, I think that, they don't want to rock the boat, and it'll be like, oh, so-and-so, we really need to keep him because he's critical to running our whatever. And, we have a chief information security officer, but we've heard rumors about, chief resiliency officers for years at organizations, and very few companies have that seat at the C level or of their companies.
Any follow-up, Rina? Anything to add?
No, it's true, and we'll just get too passionate if we keep going on about this. And it can feel to whoever's listening or watching us a bit dramatic, I'd like to say. But when you have personally experienced it and you know what it's really like, and this is why it's really important to have this conversation, Alex, because it actually, whoever's listening, like, just take note of what we're saying. We're not just saying it because we're just angry. This is coming from a place of actual, like, this is annoying and how can we change it?
And as you both said, from experience.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're speaking from experience. You're not reading from a textbook or somebody else's verbiage. It's
Yeah.
your own lives you're talking about here.
Yeah, and I think it's also one of those where, I know quite a few women who are in resiliency positions. They deliver time and time again, hand over fist, and they're doing amazing things with small teams. And yet then you'll hear that they did not get promoted, and it went to somebody else who did less, didn't accomplish as much, or you hear about, oh well, we moved people from her team to his team, and then we promoted him.
It's interesting you said that, because my last contract, I saw the same thing happen.
Yeah.
I was working for a senior director. She was just fantastic. I loved working with her, but there wasn't a path for her to go up. So she went sideways, because there is a path to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So to me, it felt like, wow, she left a fantastic job. She had a fantastic team, but she had to leave it to be able to move forward.
Yep.
I wish her all the best, of course, but it was kind of sad that she had to do that. On that note, we've come to the end of our first segment. Today, we are talking about women in resilience with Margaret Millett and Rina Singh, and we will be right back. Welcome back. Today, we are talking with Rina Singh and Margaret Millett about women in resilience. Margaret, in the first segment, you talked about women not being an ally. What did you mean by ally? And Rina, feel free to jump in as well. So, when we're talking women in resilience, what is an ally?
Rina, do you want to start, since I believe you said you had a definition that you think that could be a baseline for us?
Yeah, definitely. So an ally, Alex, and for everyone listening, is any person that actively promotes and aspires to advance the culture of inclusion through intentional, positive, and conscious efforts that benefit people as a whole. So everyone has the ability to be an ally, because we all have privileges. It's intersectional, as I mentioned before. So white women can be actionable allies to women of color, men can be allies to women, able-bodied can be allies to those with different abilities, and so forth. Economically privileged can be those allies to those who are not. So I feel it's important, because we're going to discuss this, that we have a broad and vague understanding of what we mean when we talk about allyship.
Margaret?
So I've worked at companies, and when we get down to the discussion of promotions, the HR representative is in the room for that discussion or on a Zoom. And it's interesting that they have not also gone out and looked at the profiles of all the people who are potential candidates for promotions. And I feel that they also should be out there as the one that interacts with that senior leadership person who has to go and approve promotions, of saying, you have X number of men, you have X number of women. Don't you think that you should be doing, certain percentage of promotions based, one, geographically, two, based on male, female, and helping set what those requirements should be. Because it's always interesting when you go into calibration, and sometimes you hear it's like, well, she's following up with me on stuff, and maybe she's following up too much, but isn't that their job sometimes, is to follow up and go do something? And so when I hear sometimes why somebody should not be considered a candidate for a promotion, I'm like, it's nitpicky. And then I also say, what was their job and what did they do that was above and beyond? And I find that oftentimes managers, male managers that is, are just reiterating what the job description is of the person that they've been hired to do. It's like, you shouldn't get promoted because, you monitored the website for bad things to happen. That's your job.
Yeah, that's true. Rina,
On
anything?
the flip side, there is some male managers who don't want to see their female counterparts succeed. So the ball's in their court too. So it's really difficult to then get that allyship, not just from women, because that's again a whole different story, but then from others as well, like other genders, for women to seek that, because there's all those unconscious or conscious biases.
Yeah.
Well, we talk about, you kind of touched on it too, the characteristics of an ally. Let's use me as an example. How can I be an ally to not just the two of you here, but to women in resilience? But also, what would I do to do the opposite? What kind of characteristics would I have to obviously display that I'm not an ally?
Let me jump and kick off that. One of the things that is really important when thinking about allyship is actually not saying that you're an ally. So it's not an identity, right? So if you're calling yourself an ally, you've already got it wrong, in my opinion, because it's a lifelong process of you're building that trust, that consistency, that accountability for marginalized individuals, be it all groups of people, be it women in resilience, for example, what we're talking about today. So obviously, I appreciate, and so does Margaret, that those people, there are people who want to support women in resilience, but just saying that you want to be an ally and joining our group doesn't make you an ally. Acting sustainably and doing the work to improve the overall system does. So what do I mean by that, Alex? Because I'm kind of talking a bit textbooky, fluffy here. I've got three things that you can start off with doing, and for those who are listening. And the first thing is actually educating yourself. So what that means is you need to try and actively understand challenges women and other minorities, if you're interested in that support, face. So let go of the fear, because we all have that fear within us of being wrong, and don't underestimate someone's assumptions. Don't underestimate someone based on your assumptions. So this is again going back to what I said before the break, was okay, it might sound a bit dramatic what we're saying, but don't underestimate that, and it's okay, just take a step back. We're not here to tell you and teach you every single nuance of the challenges we face. You've got to actively try and do the work for that. So that's number one, and these are not in any particular order, but I'll do it in this way. Number two is you got to take a stand as an ally when groups become a target for unjust treatment. So the most important part of being an ally is actually speaking out when an individual or group is being targeted. So we're in that meeting at work. There's about two females or one female, and she's leading the meeting, and there's all men. Everyone's just ignoring her at the table. And you realize that, or interrupting her as she speaks, you realize that. What have you done? Have you just kept quiet? Or have you actually said, hold on a minute, or Rina was talking, let her finish, or helped reinforce that? And that for me is taking a stand for unjust treatment, because Alex, so many times I get interrupted and people speak over me, and it's just annoying because they want to, because they feel like they can, and it might not be malicious, but it's just frustrating for women when that happens all the time. And then you start wondering, okay, what is going on? So has anybody actually in the meeting noticed that and saying to me afterwards, oh yeah, I saw that they were are trying to undermine you or speak over you? Well, that doesn't help me. Like, if you want to be an ally, prove it. And so that's number two. And then the third one, which we can start off with, is actually promoting leadership to help women and other minorities that may not traditionally take on these leadership positions to progress and find opportunities, recommend them for a new role, or give them a platform. Like Alex, you're giving everybody a platform. You gave me a platform. You're giving Margaret a platform. That is a start to that, when some people, especially women, might not actually get that opportunity. And for me, that's really important, because there have been many people in my life who have supported me doing this by giving me a platform, believing in me, talking well behind me, behind my back, and supporting me, and actually giving me credit where it's due. Because I tell you from experience, there have been times when I've done a fantastic piece of work, I've just been glossed over, and it's been done as a team effort, but the person who's saying that thinks that they're an ally to women, but they're not. But they're not. So actually doing that is really important. And for me, it makes such a difference in showcasing you're an ally without actually telling me you're an ally, especially when you're giving that platform or recommending someone for opportunities, because there's literally nothing in it for you. You actually want to improve the system to help. And that's the whole point of allyship. No matter if you want to be an ally for a woman, for different ethnic minorities, or whatever I've just mentioned, it's you actually genuinely care, because together we can create a better space for everyone if we do that.
Margaret.
And I think to add to what Rina said, it's also just the little things that you do day in, day out that can make a huge difference on how women feel in the workplace. Like, for example, if you need to have meeting minutes taken, don't just automatically look to the woman to take it. Or if you do that, start off saying, hey, could Margaret go first? And then every week, somebody else is going to take the baton and do the meeting minutes. Oftentimes I've been in meetings where it's like, oh, she can do it. And that doesn't make you feel confident in your job either. I think the other thing is also making sure that when you are doing roundtables, that you don't leave the woman as last, that again, you're mixing it up. And that also goes for presentations, to whether it be, all hands meetings or et cetera. I can tell you in my career, oftentimes the last team that gets put into decks is the business continuity team. And, that's also then when it's like, oh, we got 10 minutes left, let's move it along. Why can't we, again, share the wealth of having prime time with everybody else? And I think the other thing is, really think before you try and push something forward for recommending something for people, because don't always assume that, a woman should go do something that's a woman's initiative at the organization that would be a great spotlight for. Because again, I have to say, we get offers to go do all these things to help support other women. And it's like, well, we're probably already doing that, but what can we do to also get the spotlight within the organization, doing something to get our exposure to leadership, other members of the teams, or doing other things globally, and not just like, oh, there's a Dress for Success luncheon on Tuesday. Could you go to that at the local, restaurant and represent the company? I think that's where we also just need to do this. And also for women's events, it's okay to send a man.
Really? Can you explain that?
Well, here's why. They need to help get educated as well. And I look at it as 50% of the workforce is probably female and 50% of it is men. And I don't think a lot of organizations do a very good job of help educating men on what they need to be cognizant of in the workplace. I know that I may be dating myself now, because Sheryl Sandberg at Facebook, wrote her Lean In book more than 10 years ago now, but there are lean-in groups. And why can't organizations have a male lean-in group so that they can learn about what they may need to do? Or if you get it more mature within your company, why can't men sit in and offer something to advice for women? So I think that, again, it's a two-way street. If they don't know that something needs to get done, then they're not going to be there. And I look at it, all these organizations that have talked about women, men can benefit from it too. It's not, not every man is cut from the same cloth, and neither is every woman.
I'm glad you said that, because years ago, I did sign up for a symposium. It was a women's symposium, but I knew who the speaker was. I highly respect her. I knew she had some fantastic thoughts, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to sign up and I'm going to go. I was told I wasn't welcome.
Wow. Because I also look at it as
women only, and I thought I'm losing out on a fantastic learning experience overall.
Yeah.
But I was shocked.
That's so tricky, isn't it? Because it depends on the intention and the objective of things. Like for women in resilience, and then we're going to touch on this a little bit later. Yes, the platform is for women, and there's been challenges like, why aren't you having male speakers? It's like, well, because the whole point of the group is to give women a platform, so then you've got to stick you got to be true to that objective as well. However, when we run events, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, there are men who show up for women as well, and they're allies without being allies, as you said. So it's really interesting. And finally, Alex, one last point to what Margaret said, because it's amazing, but to the point of actually, just because I'm a woman, don't expect me to be involved in the women's stuff. I want to say that about diversity and inclusion too, because as a British female Indian, like triple whammy, okay, I'm gonna put it right out there with all this like ethnic minority stuff, I get asked all the time, oh, what do you think of like diversity and inclusion, and what about for Asian Indian people? Why just because I'm brown, why do I have to be involved in everything? For once, I'd rather not, so it's okay to, just because you're of that representation, that you shouldn't automatically be an expert in those things.
Yep.
And on that note, we've come to the end of our second segment. Today, we're talking about women in resilience with Rina Singh and Margaret Millett, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Today, we are talking with Rina Singh and Margaret Millett about women and resilience. Rina, Margaret, let's talk about the Women in Resilience Committee. Now, you guys are involved with that. What are your specific roles with the committee?
Alex, so glad we're touching on this. I am the chair of the Women in Resilience Committee. And Margaret?
I am the vice chair.
Well, and I've got the two best people to ask this next question. What are the objectives and the purpose of the committee? And I guess as the chair, Rina, you can go first.
Yeah, so the Women in Resilience Committee basically aims to empower and champion women working in our resilience industry. And the way we do that is giving women a platform to showcase their thought leadership, inspire, connect, and form an open support system to leverage each other's information so we can thrive and succeed in our careers.
Margaret, anything to add?
No, I'm going to just say the one thing that's been really nice about this is we truly do have a global representation, so that, we are trying to look at the needs and ask of everybody when they write into us or get on a webinar and say, hey, what about X, Y, or Z? So we're actively listening as to what people are looking for, because we know that over these past few years, it's been a challenge. So we've been trying to get ahead of the curve on anticipating people's needs.
To carry on one of the points that you've both brought up, is the Women in Resilience Committee ongoing, or is there a desire at some point maybe to shut it down? Hey, we've reached our goals or our objectives. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, such a loaded question, Alex. Look, in our world where equal standing still doesn't exist, we need to have groups like Women in Resilience. It's absolutely necessary. Yes, we've reached many milestones, and so has the generic workforce for the advancement of women, but still it's a fact that women go through a myriad of challenges. So we need to focus our direction on providing a place for women globally who can vulnerably express themselves and understand and have that understanding and support system to address women's specific challenges in our industry, and then use that to leverage, like I said earlier, each other's individual and diverse experiences that we have, along with our varying privileges. So from my perspective, there is no end date. The end date will be when there's equality, 50-50.
Good.
Well,
Margaret,
I don't even think that even after we get to equality at 50-50, that we will disband, meaning there have been women organizations at all professions or many professions for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And I just think that there's still going to need to be that forum for women to come together to talk about things, because even when there's equality, the boat will not be smooth sailing. Like life, there's the bell curve, it goes well, and then there's the upheavals and things. So something is always going to be there that's going to be the new roadblock or a challenge, or even celebrating successes. Like, hey, look at this. How do we acknowledge this? And so I think that regardless of where we are, that, we'll always have a women in resiliency, just like you hear about, women in law, women in medical, et cetera.
Before I ask the next question, how can people get in touch with you if they want to be involved with the committee or contribute or just to find out more information? How can they reach out and find you?
Well,
Margaret,
we're
go
both
for it.
on LinkedIn, so feel free to reach out to us. And then there actually is a BCI Women in Resiliency page. Feel free to connect on that page to ask to join and get, we also love an extra set of helping hands. So if you're looking to volunteer, there are ways to get involved. And then, we are road mapping a full calendar of events for 2022. So, and also continue to check the BCI website. We have our own group page, and you can find out about events and things that we will be hosting in the coming year.
I'm going to go get that link when we're finished our talk, and I'm going to put that in the episode submission to Voice America, and I'm also going to put the link in the description when the show appears on YouTube as well. So that will help and get people coming towards you. My next question, what are some of the things you have worked on? What has the committee worked on, and are there some projects that maybe you want to share with us that are either happening now or things that you might have in the future? Because you did mention an events page.
Yeah, and we're not going to give up all away on this podcast, Alex, but we've had considerable online events over this past year, hundreds of spotlights that have happened since the start of Women in Resilience, spotlighting women who are working here, along with looking at our allies and what they've contributed to the advancement of women in our industry, articles, blog posts, webinars, and that really thriving LinkedIn group that's helping meet the global connections. So there's so much and so many ways that you can benefit from this, and it's all free as well. So all these resources that you're getting are free, plus there's an opportunity for anybody who wants to write articles, to host a webinar, to speak at an event, to do a spotlight, because the whole point of this group is to hear from diverse women, get support, and actually provide that platform. So it's there for you. You've just got to make the effort. So if you're interested, I want to hear from everyone, and that's the only way that this is going to work. And that's the only caveat, is that you've got to put in that effort. We're putting a lot, bringing to you a whole host of events, as Margaret had said, but we also want you to give that effort back for yourself as well, because you're going to be part of creating a legacy for other women who are entering the resilience field, and then helping them break the glass ceilings if they want to.
Margaret, anything to add?
I think the other thing that's great in this day and age of technology is that our events are available on demand. And so that, you can go back if you want to find out more about what we've done in the past few years. It's available on the BCI website. And I think the other thing is, we talked about how we're trying to do things globally. So, there are going to be times when we're running an event and hopefully you're going to be sleeping because it's in, your time to be sleeping in your time zone, and that you can go back. And we really try and think about what are the needs. And so that's where we do listen to what people are asking for. I know this year we really focused in on, how to make ourselves better prepared for still, living and dealing with COVID. What do we need to make ourselves continue to be successful, knowing it's like, doing the hokey pokey, you're going back to work in the office. No, you're not going back. And, so how do we help everybody deal with that, as well as, just life? I mean, it's still continued to be a challenge depending on where you're at. For example, I was just in the Netherlands last month, and, they put down some new restrictions for COVID. I think it's, again, how do I continue to live my life and be successful? And how can we help you navigate that with the events that we are hosting for you? And we want to still be there to be your number one source to be successful as a woman in resiliency across the globe.
We have just over 3 minutes left. So could each of you take a minute with any final thought? Margaret, why don't you go first?
Thanks, Alex. I do think it's important that we as human beings, take a moment to figure out how we can continue to help one another. And I think that the Women in Resiliency Committee is a perfect platform to continue to grow this profession. And I say this is really important because, I've been in this profession for a long time, and I never thought that I would be in this profession as long as I have been, but I have loved every minute of my career. But I'm also getting to a point in my life where I have less years to work ahead of me than others do. And I think that in order for this profession to continue to thrive, we have to get new people in. So it's our responsibility to help make sure that this profession continues to thrive and we get outstanding people to continue to contribute to this profession.
Great, thank you. Rina.
Listen, it's your chance to leave a legacy in addressing equality, but also setting the industry standard for resilience so we can provide better leveraging opportunities and help each other and the next generation of female resilience leaders.
Yeah.
And on that note, we've come to the end of our show. Rina, Margaret, thank you so much for coming on. I'm glad our calendars finally synced and we got to talk about this. I really appreciate it. And I know we had lots of chats during our breaks too. We probably could have done twice the amount of time that we have. We really got going a couple of times. But I really appreciate you sharing your expertise and your time. And I full support Women in Resilience in your committee. And I'll be checking out those pages as well. And as I say, I will include the links so that hopefully listeners and viewers, please check them out. Thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise. I really appreciate it. And as I say, this episode was dedicated to my mom, my Auntie Brenda, and my Auntie Kendall. I miss you guys. I love you guys. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing. And to everybody listening and watching, stay prepared, everybody. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave a message and let me know what your thoughts are. If you'd like to be a guest on the show to talk about something related to business continuity, disaster management, COVID, personal well-being, anything that's relatable to those subjects, you can reach me through my LinkedIn profile, which is in the video description. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. In the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.